Adding and subtracting decimals, Chapter 2, Lesson 6, Part 1. So adding decimals with opposite signs is what we'll be focusing on here. There's nothing different than adding integers, except now we have numbers that are beyond the decimal. So just remember, for good practice when adding or subtracting decimals, I like to line them up vertically, and by lining them up by the decimal, that helps me keep them in the right place. But in question A here, we have negative 5.21 plus 2.49. So again, they're using absolute value here of negative 5.21 and absolute value of 2.49. Because they're opposite signs, they subtract the absolute value. So 5.21 minus 2.49 is 2.72. And then they assign the negative sign here because our larger digit, our larger number, negative 5.21 is bigger than 2.49. The negative was bigger than the positive. So in B here, we have negative 2.34 minus 6.21. Again, they are going to subtract the absolute values. Or I'm sorry, my apologies. Negative 2.34 minus 6.21. So anytime we have a subtraction problem with integers, remember we change it to adding its opposite. So we had minus a positive 6.21. So now we change it to subtract or adding a negative 6.21. And now, because we just have a negative plus a negative, negative 2.34 plus a negative 6.21, you can just add them. So 2.34 and 6.21, and then put the negative back in front. So as I said, when I do these problems, I do like to line them up. So I would have put 2.34 plus 6.21 by lining up my decimals, and then just added them that way. And you can see it would be 8.55, and again, I reassign that negative in front. Okay, so number 1, we have 3.62 plus a negative 4.09. Again, because we're adding something with opposite signs, first I'm going to use the absolute values and subtract. So I have the absolute value of 3.62 and the absolute value of 4.09. And I want to have my larger one first. So I would put, so that changes to 4.09 minus 3.62. Again, I would line it up vertically. So I'm going to do that over to the side here. 4.09 minus 3.62. 9 minus 2 is, of course, 7. And then I can't do 0 minus 6, so I have to borrow. And now I can do 10 minus 6 is 4. I bring my decimal straight down, and 3 minus 3 is 0. So that would be 0.47. And now I want to look and see, okay, my larger number here is negative, so my answer is a negative 0.47. Why don't you try and solve number 2 and number 3 and come back and check your work against mine. So in number 2, I would change it to 5.27 minus 3.53, again, because it's adding a positive and a negative. So that would be 4. Bring my decimal straight down. So I would have 1.74. I'm going to look back at my original question. My larger number is positive, so my final answer is a positive 1.74. In number 3, I have negative 2.5 minus 3.65. So again, it's important to change all subtraction to addition. So I would have negative 2.05 plus a negative 3.65. And now I'm adding two negatives. So again, I'm just going to line them up. 2.05 plus 3.65. And I get 5.70, or just 5.7. Because they both are negative, I need to assign my negative sign at the end. So negative 5.7 is the answer you should have come up with. Okay, on this next page here, we're just doing real world situations or word problems. So the water level in a pond was 4.21 feet. During a heavy downpour, it rose by 1.19 feet. But in summer, the water level dropped 2.32 feet. What is the final water level? So they just are using the information here. And again, it started at a positive 4.21. And then it rained and it said the water level went up. So we're adding 1.19. And then we start by and then it says the water level drops. So that's subtraction by 2.32. So first they added 4.21 plus 1.19 and got 5.4. Then they did 5.4 minus 2.32. Since both of these numbers are positive, they didn't change it to adding its opposite. They just subtracted. So 5.4 minus 2.32 is 3.08. So the final water level is 3.08 feet. So let's look at number 4. At noon, the temperature was 70.5 degrees Fahrenheit. And by midnight, the temperature dropped 10.9 degrees Fahrenheit. So it dropped. So we're subtracting 10.9. And then the next morning, the temperature rose by 12.1 feet. Or 12.1 degrees Fahrenheit. So what is the final temperature? All right, so in these cases, again, if we have a positive and we're subtracting another positive that's smaller, I would just go straight across. So 70.5 minus 10.9. And I like to do it vertically. It just helps me when I line up the decimals. So I need to borrow here, and I can't borrow from 0, so I have to borrow from the 6. This is now 10, so now I can borrow from 10, and this is 15. So 15 minus 9 is 6. I bring my decimal straight down. 9 minus 0 is 9, and 6 minus 1 is 5. So now I have 59.6 plus 12.1. And again, I would line that up vertically. So 6 plus 1 is 7. Bring my decimal straight down. 9 plus 2 is 11. I regroup my 1. And 1 plus 5 plus 1 is, of course, 7. So I would get 71.7. So the final temperature is 71.7 degrees Fahrenheit. So the last page here in adding and subtracting decimals are 2 real-world problems. I would like you to give those a try on your own. And again, come back and check your work against mine in a minute. So pause now and come back and check. Okay, so number 5, it says the water tank has a water level of 8.5 feet. So we're starting with 8.5. Due to a leak, the water level fell by 2.21 feet. It fell or it dropped. So I'm subtracting 2.21. And then the tank was repaired and more water was pumped into it. The water rose by 3.21 feet. So I just add 3.27 feet. Okay, so now I'm just going to go straight across because I have 8.5 minus 2.1. So again, I'm going to do it vertically off to the side. 8.5 minus 2.21. Remember with dealing with decimals, especially when subtracting, we want to add that 0 in there because I can't take 1 from nothing. So I'm going to have to borrow. So 10 minus 1 is 9. 4 minus 2 is 2. And 8 minus 2 is 6. So now I have 6.29 plus 3.27. And again, I'm going to keep doing that vertically. It just works better for me. So 9 plus 7 is 16. 2 plus 2 plus 1 is 5. Decimal comes straight down. And I would get 9.56. So my answer would be 9.56 feet. All right, number 6, at noon, the temperature was 6.9 degrees. So that's where I'm starting. So I write that first. By midnight, the temperature dropped by 8.5 degrees. So subtract 8.5. And the next morning, it fell further by 2.3. So again, I'm subtracting. In this case, because this number here that I'm subtracting is larger than my first one, I am going to change it to addition. So this is equivalent to 6.9 plus a negative 8.5 plus a negative 2.3. So first I'm going to start by adding my two negatives. So 8.5 plus 2.3 is 10.8. So now I have 6.9 plus a negative 10.8. And because I'm adding a positive and a negative, what I'm going to do is actually subtract them and keep the sign of the larger digit. So in this case, my larger digit is negative. So I know my answer will be negative. And now I'm just going to do 10.8 minus 6.9. So I can't borrow from there. So this is 9. 18 minus 9 is 9. And 9 minus 6 is 3. So your answer should be negative 3.9 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm sure you got all these correct. That's it for adding and subtracting decimals.